238 combat engagements took place on the front line over the past day. The General Staff reported this. The situation remains tense in the South Slobozhanska direction. There, the Russians attempted to advance 8 times. Ukrainian defenders repelled enemy attacks near Lyman, Izbitsky, and Staritsia. And joining us now is Victor Trihub, spokesperson for the Joint Forces grouping. Mr. Victor, welcome.
Greetings to you. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes. Mr. Victor, regarding the Kupiansk direction, especially since a number of reviews, particularly recently, are focused primarily on it. What is happening there, and what is the general situation?
The Kupiansk direction is divided into 2 equal parts. One part is our forces that are directly located behind the Oskil River on its eastern or left bank and are holding the defense there against the Russians' attempts to build up this bridgehead and break through to Kupiansk-Uzlovy. The second part is the city of Kupiansk itself, directly on the right western bank of the Oskil River, where the Russians are trying to enter the city itself through the northern outskirts. Unsuccessfully, but they are trying very actively, and they have certain footholds on the very northern outskirts. And if we take the eastern part, if we take the outskirts, the Russians are actively using their numerical superiority there, actively trying to push right through the center of the Ukrainian bridgehead through Pishchina, further west towards Kupiansk, Uzlovy directly. And Ukrainian forces are inflicting the primary damage on them precisely during these attempts, to break through through the center. If we are talking about the city of Kupiansk itself, the Russians are trying to covertly bring in small infantry groups through Holubivka. This is a village on the bank of the Oskil, directly north of Kupiansk itself, and also to expand perhaps their capabilities by occupying the village of Hirudka, a little to the west of Holubivka. And this, in principle, could allow them to enter the city from the north. Whereas now, for them, this is associated with great difficulties, with the need to move through a well-targeted forest belt. Although sometimes certain groups do get through and they have to be destroyed right on the spot.
Thus, Mr. Victor, we see that on the Kupiansk axis alone, there are several centers and several points where the enemy is applying effort. How then should we correctly assess the situation along the Kupiansk axis as a whole?
Well, it's quite complicated, but if we take the city of Kupiansk itself, it is not currently under direct threat. We are not talking about what the Russians were saying, that they control Kupiansk. Although, again, the situation is not optimal, because until the final cutting off of the Russians from the very possibility of bringing even small infantry groups there takes place, that is if we are talking about the city itself. If it's the bridgehead on the eastern bank itself, it might be a bit more difficult there because there are certain logistical challenges. One must understand that it is, first of all, across the river. Secondly, the Russians have the ability to strike the bridgehead directly from several sides using UAVs from different angles. On the other hand, the Russians are wearing themselves down so actively in attempts to take Kupiansk, which for them in reality no longer has any particular value, but does have, let's say, symbolic value, that in principle, overall, if you look at the situation from a higher perspective, the defense of Kupiansk itself is very effective due to the fact that the Russians are expending resources in large quantities and not where, in principle, it would be necessary to do so to achieve any of their more objective goals.
Mr. Victor, returning to the left bank of the Oskil and what is happening there, it is no secret from open sources that the Russians are especially trying to eliminate and damage our logistics chains. Accordingly, we are responding to them in kind. Tell me, please, regarding these logistical aspects, to what extent do they, could you explain, to what extent do they determine the future development of events specifically in this sector?
Well, as of now, there are certainly some very specific positions where the situation is quite complicated. But, well, let's be honest here. This generally applies to the entire demarcation line, where UAVs are currently playing a very active and critical role in the ongoing operations. That is, well, let's be honest, if there is a large number of UAVs, if there is a large number of GNUNs, so-called UAVs, if there are fiber optic UAVs, then logistics is in principle always a challenge. Right now, perhaps even overall, if we take our area of responsibility, maybe it's less of a challenge than it was some time ago, well, I don't know, half a year ago, because there are already more equipped logistics routes. There are more routes where those same nets are stretched. So in principle, overall, maybe it's even a little less difficult than it was, say, half a year ago. But it's still difficult nonetheless. Logistics is still a problem, but for both sides at the same time, both for us and for the Russians. And here it should be noted that for us, logistics is more of a problem at short range, while for the Russians, it's at short and medium range.
Uh-huh. The Lyman direction is also super important, including because of the fact that such a Lyman component is, as far as as a non-professional person in the military sense, as far as I understand, it is a component of the Russian offensive on the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. The Lyman direction, how are things there?
Things are quite stable there because the Russians cannot ensure effective advancement there on the Lyman direction itself. They're well-equipped engineering positions. There is a well-built UAV system, a strike system. And despite the fact that the Russians are indeed trying to advance along the entire line there and are also trying to cling to the outskirts of Lyman itself directly from the east, the effectiveness there is in principle low. The Russians are currently putting significantly more effort a little further south. We were just assigned a small section in our area of responsibility up to Raihorodok and Kluchne. The activity there is really high. They tried to break through there via Raihorodok in the direction of Sloviansk, but again, they did not achieve success. But before that, in the previous days, they did have some advances specifically towards this settlement.
Mr. Viktor, as always, we are very grateful for the clarification. Viktor Tryhubov, spokesperson for the Joint Forces grouping, was with us. There have been over 200 combat engagements on the front line over the past day. The General Staff recorded the highest number of Russian attacks in the Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka directions. There were nearly 50 assaults there. On the Sloviansk front, the defense forces repelled 12 enemy assaults in the areas of Kriva Luka, Piskunivka, and towards Oleksandrivka and Mykolaivka. In the southern Bu direction, Ukrainian units stopped 19 assaults near Izbitske, Okremivka, Karaichne, Bishkova, and Budarki. Victoria Malosvit will continue with the next broadcast at 1600. The Ukrainian military struck the Novokuybishevsk oil refinery in the Samara region. The strike was confirmed by President Volodymyr Zelensky. The facility is located 1,000 kilometers from the front line. The plant produces automotive and aviation fuel, as well as diesel for military needs. Also, overnight, Ukrainian drones hit an ozone logistics hub, also in the Samara region. And in the Bryansk region, repeaters used to control drones with which the aggressor country's army terrorizes Ukrainian cities and villages were destroyed. Also, there are reports online about a drone attack on the port in the city of Yeysk, Krasnodar Krai. Preliminary reports indicate a vessel was damaged there. The Ukrainian military also has results in the Black Sea. Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed a strike on the Saki airfield in temporarily occupied Crimea. An enemy Su-24 aircraft and 4 units of special equipment were destroyed, he reported. Crimean social media channels are also reporting a fire in the Simferopol district. A solar power plant and the adjacent substation are on fire. On the peninsula, they are already complaining about power outages. The blackout in Crimea has been ongoing for 3 days.